Welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ireechaa Mingura, and I'm the Director of Communications at the Blessed Stanley Road Shrine in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Can you share a
Mhm.
little bit about what you all have been doing or what the community has been celebrating? Especially, I am really interested in the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Mhm.
It's a special interest of me, but yeah, can
Yeah,
you
of
share
course.
about
Yeah, of course. So here in Oklahoma City, we have a large demographic of the Mexican community. So naturally, the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe is a big deal to us in this area, especially because she appeared in Mexico City. Additionally, the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe is a huge deal here at the shrine because we have Tepeyac Hill and we have two huge statues of Our Lady of Guadalupe and St. Juan Diego. And that gets a lot of attention and a lot of visitors. So we wanted our celebration of Our Lady of Guadalupe to be really special because she's the Mother of Americas and she's here with us at the shrine. So what we did to celebrate the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe this year, we had three separate different celebrations. On the day of the 12th, December 12th at 5 a.m., there was a mariachi band there at the hill at 5 in the morning. And we had more than 2,000 people who came. And
wow.
yeah, a lot of people, a lot of families set up tables and they were outside giving out free drinks, like free hot drinks, like kind of this Mexican drink called champurrado, which is a really good and yummy hot drink. And then people were giving out pan dulce, like Mexican sweetbread. And we were outside singing to Our Lady of Guadalupe from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. The mariachi was. And then we had Mass at 6 a.m. with Archbishop Coakley in Spanish.
Wow.
So that was really fun. And Las Mañanitas, it's a Mexican tradition. Usually it's sung on someone's birthday. And the tradition is that you sing it to someone really early in the morning, like before dawn, because the song talks about this is the day, the sun is rising and this is your special day. So that's what we're saying to Our Lady of Guadalupe at the very
Hmm.
beginning of the day. Later on Friday, because it fell on Friday this year, later on we had a Marian procession around the shrine. So we had people follow this truck, and in the truck they were kind of blasting like Mexican music, but in between the mysteries of the Rosary, it was a Rosary procession, and in between the mysteries they would sing like a Marian hymn. And they had a statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe that they were processing around. And we also had the apparitions play, which is basically a reenactment of Mary appearing to St. Juan Diego. We had that on Friday evening, as well as Mass later on as well. And so that's what we did the actual day of Our Lady of Guadalupe on the 12th. And then Saturday, the day after, we had a cabalgata, which is basically like a procession on horseback, and we had a lot of participants who came and participated. Some of the roads were closed down because they had a procession from one of the schools near here at the shrine, and then they processed into the shrine campus. And basically, there was a lot of matachines dancers, a lot of dances. They were dancing in honor of Our Lady of Guadalupe. There was also live music, and there was a bunch of people who participated who had horses, um, and with their flags of Mexico, of America, and of Our Lady of Guadalupe. The procession ended here at the shrine, and then we had more dancing, more music, and more celebration of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So that was on the day of Saturday. And on Sunday, we just had a festival all day, more live music, a lot of food, and also another apparitions play and matachines dancers. So it was a lot of the same thing, but in different ways. So
Can
yes.
you explain a little bit about the significance of the marachines?
Yeah, of course. So the matachines, it's rooted in the Aztec traditional dancing in Mexico. And since Our Lady appeared to the Aztecs, it's a way of really keeping in that culture, but really elevating it and using it to honor Our Lady and really just A symbolic way of expressing our devotion and our love for Our Lady of Guadalupe.
And then what are some different Christmas traditions in terms of like food or like a different way that that community might celebrate like actual like Christmas Eve or
Right.
Christmas Day?
hmm So, a Mexican tradition that I've always done growing up, we always have Las Posadas leading up until Christmas Day. And Las Posadas kind of translates to, oh, I don't know how to really explain it. It's like a place to stay, so like lodging. And so it's where we kind of reenact um, how Mary and Joseph couldn't find somewhere to stay in Bethlehem, and she didn't have anywhere to have to go into. I don't want to say labor, but yeah, she was trying to find somewhere for lodging since she was about to have the baby Jesus, and her and Joseph couldn't find anywhere to stay. And so Las Posadas is basically a way to reenact that situation. And it's a moment of singing. And then the posadas that I always go to, we always pray the rosary. And then there's also songs in between the rosaries, the mysteries. And then it also ends in food and community and sometimes games. Um, but in the song, there's a song that's always sang at Las Posadas. And half of the group stays outside and half of the group is inside, and then they're singing to each other back and forth. And the song is basically the people outside are speaking on behalf of Mary and Joseph, asking for a place to stay, and the people are in the inside are saying, "No, you can't come in. You know, we don't even know who you are." But as the song progresses, they realize that this is Mary, the Queen of Heaven, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you can come in." So it's even a moment of conversion, kind of in the moment of the song, and it's also a chance for us to open our hearts to let Mary and Joseph reside in our hearts, so that they can have the baby Jesus. So it's really a practice of opening our hearts to the divine and welcoming the Holy Family into our lives.
That's beautiful.
Well, we have our sister parish, Sacred Heart, and they're the ones who really organized all of these celebrations. We hosted it. But our sister parish, Sacred Heart, they are doing Las Posadas, but they will have it at the Sacred Heart Church, not here at the shrine.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about this. It sounds really beautiful.
Yeah, of
I
course.
I didn't know about it beforehand, but I'm excited to hopefully check it out next year. It sounds really
hmm
lovely.
Yeah, yeah, you're always welcome.
Okay, welcome, Makia. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Oromo and their origins and a little bit
Yes.
about them?
Yes, the Oromo are the indigenous people of East Africa. They're one of the largest group in Africa. In fact, the Oromo language itself is spoken by about 60 million people. It is the fourth most spoken language and also one of the it's one of the largest Cushitic language. So it has a lot of connection with different groups within East Africa, like Somalis and in Djibouti and Eritrea. There are groups that speak Cushitic language and other groups within Ethiopia, but Oromos are largely located in Ethiopia.
Okay. So I think from what we've talked about before, you're sort of in this process of reclaiming some of the
Yeah.
traditional practices and beliefs of this group that had been practiced for many, many generations,
Yeah.
not unlike the the indigenous groups in the U.S. are having to do some of that process as well because of colonialism coming in and conversion to Christianity, forced or otherwise. What is the similar situation in those areas with the Oromo? Was there like a colonial impact there?
Yeah, it's a little bit we have internal colonization within the East Africa. So we have Christianity and Islam introduced for the Oromo people, which replaced the indigenous faith practice, which is called Waqifana. Waqifana, the word itself means to worship. And so it's a traditional indigenous faith practice. And a lot of Oromos, even when they're Christian or Muslim, they used to practice Waqifana alongside the new religions they've adopted. So Waqifana itself is it's an animist religion, which is connected to nature and just oneness of humanity in the universe. So everything has something called Safu, which means every living thing and non-living thing have ethics, have a way of treating everything within your world. So the tree has safu, the animals have safu, people have safu, everything, even chair has safu. You have certain way of treating it. So it's very interconnected. It links people to nature.
That's lovely. So what's sort of this special celebration for this community?
There's a celebration called Ireechaa. It's a biannual celebration. So Ireechaa is celebration of transition, cyclical. So it's celebrated in the spring, at the beginning of spring. For our region, it's September. It's spring there, it's fall here. And then that's called Ireechaa Malka. So you go to the water and you ask for forgiveness from the mothers, ancestral mothers, and you ask for connection and prayers to Waka, which is the one unifying entity that connects everyone. So sort of like God, that's the equivalent of what Oromos would call God. So the prayer and the gratitude and the forgiveness also to the ancient mothers is included in that. And so that's Ireechaa Malka. And then every autumn, which is around April in East Africa, it's called Ireechaa Tulu, and for that you go to the mountains. And if you know Ethiopia, it's a plateau, and our region is very mountainous. So the people will go to the nearest mountain, and they will do the same thing: gratitude, forgiveness, and just kind of connecting the community. So millions of people will come around and do that in every community. In modern day, the Ethiopian government recognizes Ireechaa. So primarily they celebrate Ireechaa Malka, which is the spring celebration, which is one we do here in the United States and different diaspora. But oops, did I lose you? Okay. So it's celebrated in the spring. So everybody will dress up in very brightly decorated outfits, white primarily, but then you can also put different colors and just dress up for the occasion. You hold a stick, it's called sinke, and for the women it's called sinke. That's what the ancient mothers would hold. And then you hold grass and flowers on one hand, and then you sing, and the songs are a form of prayer, and the women lead the procession.
Because is this a matriarchal tradition?
We think it's probably it used to be really the Oromo community is the Oromo society is organized as patriarchal right now. We have something called Gada system, and the Gada system is really more patriarchal than it is matriarchal, although women have their own sinke. Sinke is what women organize around, and Gada system is for the men and boys, and it's age segregated, and it's a socio-political system. So it's linked with Waqifana, the faith, and it governs the community. So the way it works is every 8 years an age group will graduate to the next age group, and eventually the leadership is selected from the men who turn 40, and then they rule for about 40. I don't know if rule is the lead. If they lead for about 8 years, and then they graduate and pass it on to the next generation.
Okay. And so is there a specific, I think you said the sycamore tree is really important to this.
The sycamore tree is really important because Oromo people don't do churches. It used to be all of your prayers, your meetings, everything, every decision making would be made under a sycamore tree. So the community will gather under one sycamore tree. Each community has one, and then they have one that unifies the people from each region as well. So they have, for example, where I grew up, there is Odaroba, and that is a tree that unifies all the different tribes and clans around that area, and they come together and communicate with each other in that way.
Is it challenging to celebrate that, away from that region?
It used to be. I think it still is because it's the Ethiopian state is kind of it was frowned upon. This was not People were not permitted to celebrate Ireechaa or recognize a lot of these things. People in remote areas maintained, like the Borana near the Kenyan border, and Karayus, who were more pastoralists, maintained the Gada system. But most modern Oromo people were prevented from maintaining any of that. And part of it is by using religion, they kind of either incorporated the traditional way or kind of erased it. And so a lot of people don't know what the celebrations are. They're just now getting introduced to it. They're just now learning. Even the songs, it's like they were almost lost. Few people know the songs, and so we're kind of picking bits and pieces here and there and understanding the meanings.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Hi, and welcome. So good to have you, Sarah, to talk a little bit about Yule or Winter Solstice. Really appreciate you being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your celebration or what the significance of Yule is?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. This is exciting. Um, I don't think it's a celebration that gets uh, discussed like in person that often. You see a lot of info online, and so I don't honestly think that there's a very well-rounded history of this type of celebration. I think that the best people can kind of figure there was like the Germanic peoples, of Northern Europe that would celebrate like a solstice festival right around this time, and that usually had something to do with like um, uh, feasting, and they would like slaughter animals that wouldn't make it through the winter otherwise to like build up their stores for winter. And so it was just kind of a big festival right around what turns out to be, the turning point of the year, like the longest night into like the days of more light ahead. And then other sort of, I guess, identities or practices have adapted those traditions as we've all come to this place. And so there's Wiccans, which I wouldn't consider myself a Wiccan. I don't honestly know enough about that practice, even though I find it really interesting. But I have read about it. And so Wiccans tend to celebrate like the solstice time as when the goddess is in her mother form. And during the longest night, she gives birth to the god and then rests like through the rest of winter. Um, and then I think the one that I identify the most with is kind of the neo-pagan, more Celtic celebration, which does involve Yule as far as sort of the Germanic aspects of that, like the different imageries, like pine needles, evergreen trees, berries, just things that really represent like this time of year. And so for the neo-pagans, it's a lot about like a seasonal celebration. So with like, I don't know, have you heard of like the Wheel of the Year? So Yule is the first holiday on that wheel. So this is almost like the New Year celebration, with the like that coincides with the celebration of the winter solstice. So in the neo-pagan tradition, there's a lot of areas practice like the celebration of a battle between the Oak King and the Holly King. Have you heard about them before? Yeah. And so the Oak King is representative of the light and the Holly King is representative of the dark. And so in this like wheel practice, there's or this like cyclical practice, you know, that battle is ongoing. And so this is the point of the year where the Oak King wins and we move into the days of light ahead and the Holly King goes to, I don't know. I don't know where I think he goes to, but um, the celebrations that I really like to take part in around this time of year have a lot to do with nature, um, and collecting things that I can put on an altar that really bring like that idea of seasonal changes indoors and kind of this idea of rebirth. So this is, you know, we all like hit the new year with this sort of everything's going to change and be better. And what I really like about the solstice and Yule celebration is it's not about being better. It's about, you know, re-entering this time of light. And so like just an examination of the cycles. And I think for me, the natural aspect, like collecting pine cones, pine needles, holly berries, um, and being able to like sit with those in my house, like with my altar would give me that sense of like, you know, this is the cycle that we're approaching, the beginning of. And so it's a little bit about my celebration in general. Some other things that are more, you know, there's like the witchy aesthetic that's sort of taken a hold of our people. And I love it, you know, it's great. I think it's really important to combine that with the internal practice of um, you know, almost like I guess devotion to like these cyclical processes, you know, more than obviously I'm not like I don't have a witchy aesthetic personally like on my person, but I feel like I embody that aesthetic in like my practices and especially around these seasonal festivals. They're very meaningful in terms of what you can look ahead to, and then how you like examine the past and see like where you can move forward from that. And so I do like some of the more like aesthetic things like simmer pots and putting, you know, when I peel an orange, like putting the peel in water and simmering it on the stove with some different cinnamon sticks or cloves, things like that to kind of bring that scent into the house. Um, I like to do a clean and kind of get ready for the start of the new cycle. And then I do want to say one thing that I also find important, and maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit, but the I do find it really, really important to connect my practices specifically to um, a culture that I might have come from more rather than picking and choosing practices from other people's heritage or culture that I'm not affiliated with. I think for anyone, it's really important to understand that the practices that you do have meaning, and if I'm not a part of that culture, that's not my meaning to inhabit. And so that's why I think why I identify a lot more with the neo-pagan kind of Celtic. That's an area that I have like a history with, and so that feels truer to my practice. But like I have friends from all different cultures and they practice a lot differently around this time of year.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I actually just heard a presentation yesterday about a Neolithic site in Ireland called Newgrange, I believe, that has this really significant site that was there even before Stonehenge. And, everybody gathers there around solstice and the light comes in because of the specific rock formation that they had built. And I just thought it was so striking that it's so similar to like the experience at Chaco Canyon. There's a world and vast differences in time periods between those cultures, but yet there's still it's still very similar, building these rock formations specifically around the solstice, and so that the light is hitting, this area and these rituals around that. And I think that maybe no matter what culture you come from, we do our ancestors going back far enough. We're just so much more in touch with nature because they were so immersed. That was their life. That was their livelihood. And so it's a very almost like basic human impulse in us to observe and honor those cycles and the earth rather than like this time of year. And my own therapist does this where, I'm sagging, I'm tired, I'm experiencing fatigue, I'm not as clear, I'm not, at a time when you're supposed to be like extra productive and there's so much you're supposed to be getting done and so much you're supposed to be doing. And you're trying to figure out, well, why can't I keep up? What's wrong with me? And instead, realizing that is a lens that's coming from like our modern day culture or in any kind of idea about productivity, or especially during this time period, really, when you look to nature and those lessons and what our ancestors knew better than we did, that this is the time where the fields are going fallow, that we slow down, we rest, we don't create necessarily. We're sort of letting in a conversation about this with Reverend Kent Doss at First Unitarian in Oklahoma City. I was really struck with what he said about honoring what happens in the darkness. When you look at, in soil, it looks like the field is bare, but underneath the soil and in the soil and the darkness, there's all this stuff that's going on that will eventually grow new life and produce something. Not that we necessarily need to rest so that we can then produce, but I think it's good to follow those cycles of nature, that we also need to really like slow down and use this as an opportunity to be still, to be quiet, to maybe not produce, maybe not create, and instead just to be.
Yeah, to allow like what we've given ourselves throughout the year to take root, and to allow like those lessons to take root inside of us, so that when the new year starts, whatever experiences, I agree with you about the production part. It's about like, it's more about letting those roots that have taken hold, like support those experiences that are to come, while we're resting, we're allowing those lessons to really take hold and become like the foundation for the next turn of the wheel. And the the darkness is a big part of the solstice Yule celebration as well. There's a lot that you can like find about like, oh, the Christmas trees, or seasonal trees decorated with lights is a sign of like the light of solstice. And I've never really found any specific history of that, but I do like that we've created meaning from that. As far as like the battle between the light and the dark that we talked a little bit about earlier, we know you can't have one without the other. And so we can never fully embody our light without celebrating the darkness that comes behind it. And it's never all one or the other. So I like the push and pull, the turning aspect of this time of year, and I feel very ready to just lie fallow for a little bit.
Yes, me too. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Sarah.